Hello everyone, and welcome back to Isaiah for Latter-day Saints. Today we're going to be doing Isaiah 64, and once again, thematically, I think this is similar to what we've just been doing, and so we'll talk about this. This, I think, chronologically, we're looking at something maybe earlier now. We've gone back in time to just as they're coming back, before the temple's been rebuilt, and he's reflecting on what's happened. Oh, that thou wouldest rend the heavens, that thou wouldest come down, and that the mountains might flow down at thy presence. As when the melting fire burneth, the fire causeth the waters to boil, to make thy name known to thine adversaries, that the nations might tremble at thy presence. When thou didst terrible things which we looked not for, thou camest down, the mountains flowed down at thy presence. For since the beginning of the world men have not heard, nor perceived by the ear, neither hath the eye seen, O God, beside thee, what he hath prepared for him that waiteth for him. Thou meetest him that rejoiceth and worketh righteousness, those that remember thee in thy ways. Behold, thou art wroth, for we have sinned. In those is continuance, and we shall be saved. But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags. And we all do fade as a leaf, and our iniquities, like the wind, have taken us away. And there is none that calleth upon thy name, that stirreth up himself to take hold of thee. For thou hast hid thy face from us, and hast consumed us because of our iniquities. But now, O Lord, thou art our Father, we are the clay, and thou art the potter, and we all are the work of thy hand. Be not wroth very sore, O Lord, neither remember iniquity forever. Behold, see, we beseech thee. We are all thy people. Thy holy cities are a wilderness. Zion is a wilderness, Jerusalem a desolation. Our holy and our beautiful house, where our fathers praised thee, is burned up with fire, and all our pleasant things are laid waste. Wilt thou refrain thyself for these things, O Lord? Wilt thou hold thy peace and afflict us very sore? So this, you can almost feel the desperation. He's come back, he's seen everything that's happened, and he's angry. He's seen what has happened, what the Babylonians have done. He knew what had happened, but now he's seen it. He's come back and he's seen it, and he just can't cope. He's saying, God, rend the heavens, come down, that the mountains might flow down at thy presence. He's angry. He's angry now. And quake, you can say flow down, it can also be quake. Wait, tear the heavens and come down, and the mountains will quake at your presence, like fire that burns the kindling, like fire that makes the water boil. And your name, to make your name known to your enemies, and all the Gentiles will tremble before you. All the nations will tremble before you. There's this image of wanting him to come down, make the mountains shake, make everything burn with fire, so that everybody will know who he is. And all the nations will be afraid. Instead of thinking that Jehovah was just this silly little regional deity where they could just come in and kick over his temple and call it a day. So there's some real anger here, right? When thou didst terrible things which we looked not for. Terrible, you could maybe great deeds that we couldn't hope for. It says, when you came down, the mountains quaked at your presence. He said, we could never have expected these amazing things. You do these awesome things that nobody could have expected, and the mountains are quaking in your very presence. So, for since the beginning of the world men have not heard, nor perceived by the ear, neither hath the eye seen, O God, beside thee, what he hath prepared for him that waiteth for him. You are going to come and you're going to save us. You're going to make the mountains quake. Nobody has ever heard from the beginning of the world, or even hath heard by their ear or seen with their eyes, what you have prepared for those that wait for you, that wait on you. Now this should be vaguely familiar, actually. This is picked up and reused in the New Testament, right? In 1 Corinthians 2:9, we get Paul saying, "But as it is written," and it's written here in Isaiah, "Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, nor neither hath entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him." And he's talking about this in the context of the crucifixion. And the people did not understand what was happening during the crucifixion. They didn't know what was going on. They just thought, well, this guy just died. And Paul's saying, no, that's not it. He has done these amazing things to save us all. And so in the context of Isaiah, you can actually sort of read these things together, that Paul's seeing these great things of coming down and having the mountains quake at his presence. He's saying, well, this was fulfilled by the resurrection, or by the crucifixion and the resurrection. And of course, that the language of this is used in the New Testament, that in the when Jesus gives up the ghost in the Gospel of Mark, the veil is torn, the veil of the temple is torn, but that word torn is the same word that's used when the heavens are torn at the baptism of Jesus back at the beginning of the Gospel of Mark. So this idea of rending the heavens and having the mountains quake, you do get the whole earthquake thing there in the Gospels, and even in the Book of Mormon, there's some pretty bad stuff going on there as far as that goes. And so you're actually getting this through this sort of Christological reading of this part of Isaiah. Once again, we don't know if he knows this, but that is an interesting sort of idea here that we're getting here in 4, that it does apply Christologically. It says, "Thou meetest him that rejoiceth and worketh righteousness, those that remember thee in thy ways. Behold, thou art wroth, for we have sinned. In those is continuance, and we shall be saved." Now, what is this? This is a little bit confusing. But he says, you've come to meet those who are happy to do what is right, the people that keep you in their minds by making sure to do all your ways. But when you got angry, we sinned, and when you hid yourself, we opposed you or transgressed against you. And so he's saying, yeah, we didn't do everything perfectly. He said, you come to meet those who rejoice to do what's right, those who keep you in mind by observing your ways. You're going to come down from heaven, you're going to make the mountains shake, you're going to meet those who are doing what's right. But then you grew angry, and we sinned. And when you hid yourself from us, we transgressed against you. And that is sort of this sad admission of what happened. We thought that you were angry against us, so we abandoned you. And that's a truly sad admission of what's happened. And now they're trying to sort of pick up the pieces from that. It says, "But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags." This context of this is the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. He's seeing that the temple is still in ruins, and he's reflecting on what happened, that the people before the Babylonian captivity, they were looking around and not being able to make sense of the world. They thought that God was angry at them because of things that had happened, and so they just sort of gave up, and they abandoned him. It says, "We've become like a thing unclean." And even after the temple is destroyed, he's saying, okay, look, God abandoned us. He allowed the temple to be destroyed. He allowed us to be taken in captivity. We're done with him. And that's what some people did. And so there's this anger here and this sadness that this has happened. It says, "But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags." Filthy rags, this may well be a reference to what women used to have to do during their periods of, they don't have usual kinds of things, fancy things that we have today for some of this stuff. So during your period, you just have to use rags. And that's the word that's being used here. So we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags. He said, we're not righteous at all. And we all do fade as a leaf, and our iniquities like the wind have taken us away. We sinned against God. So we got taken away to Babylon. Our righteousness became filthiness, and then we got taken away. There is none that calleth upon thy name that stirreth up himself to take hold of thee. Nobody's calling on the name of the Lord, in other words. Nobody's getting himself up to really hold on to the Lord and do what he says. For thou hast hid thy face from us, and hast consumed us because of our iniquities. The people out there in the captivity are not really doing what you're telling them to do, because they thought that you had abandoned them. You've hid our face from us. You've consumed us because of our iniquities. But now, O Lord, thou art our Father. We are the clay, and thou art our potter. We are all the work of thy hand. Saying, now we see you are shaping all of this like a potter shapes clay. And that's the idea here. The image is of being literally in God's hands. Being made as a potter makes a pot. God is making all of this to work out for Israel. Be not wroth very sore, O Lord, neither remember iniquity forever. Behold, see, we beseech thee, we are all thy people. Don't be angry at us forever. Don't remember all the bad things we've done forever. Don't be angry with us. We are begging you. We're all your people. Take care of us. Your holy cities are a wilderness. All the cities that are your domain are empty now. Zion is a wilderness. Jerusalem is a desolation. Everything has been destroyed by the Babylonians. Our holy and our beautiful house, the temple, where our fathers praised thee, is burned up with fire, and all our pleasant things are laid waste. All of the temple is destroyed, and all the things that were in the temple are destroyed. Wilt thou refrain thyself from these things, O Lord? Wilt thou hold thy peace and afflict us very sore? Are you going to just not do anything? Are you going to be silent and not do anything and have us experience these afflictions? And that's sort of a difficult and an open question that the chapter sort of lingers on. Is what are we going to do now? Why has all this happened, and how are we going to deal with it? How are we going to pick up the pieces? So once again, we're probably getting this in sort of reverse chronological order, where this is earlier and the other stuff is later, as he's sort of figuring out how they're going to pick up the pieces. But we're getting his raw anger here on just returning back from Babylon. And that raw anger is interesting and painful and important, I think. And once again, as even as far back as into chapter into the 60s, into chapter 60, we have to, or even into part of 59, we have to think about what is he talking about, right? Is he talking about the have we gone back in time, and is he talking about things right after the Babylonian captivity? Could be. It could be for all of this stuff. It could be. Or, because that would work with all of these things of having people get out of prison and all this other stuff. Or is he talking about things that have happened later with issues relating to the possible failed revolt against the Persians? So we have both of these options on the table, especially as we get into 61, maybe the end of 60 and into 61. We have that option on the table, and we don't know if he's talking about the end of kingship because the revolt didn't work and you couldn't get a king, or the end of kingship because the kings are gone now because of the Babylonian captivity, and the Persians have taken over, and they're returning, but they're not allowed to have a king. So either one works just fine, and it's hard to know which is which here. But the raw anger of this, especially later on here, it's very clear that he's just talking about, he's just come back, he's seen what's happened, and he's angry. Understandably so. But I like that the scriptures sometimes preserve this raw anger for us, because our lives are sometimes like that. We sometimes have a really difficult time, and there is a lot of anger. And the scriptures don't want to minimize that. The scriptures are saying, yeah, I know there's a lot of anger here. I'm not going to pretend like life's perfect. But things are going to be okay. And sometimes we need to allow ourselves to grieve, maybe sometimes. And that's what Isaiah is doing here. And it's nice to see true to Isaiah doing this, and nice to sort of have that experience with him. So that when we go through tough times, we can say, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to mourn sometimes. Anyway, that's it for us today. We'll get 65 later, and we will see you guys next time.